So today we are going to discuss free space management techniques. In operating system, actually what happens is that constantly, as you have seen in the diagram, that one process occupies some space in RAM, then it is taken out after execution, then another process is given the memory. So what happens is that memory allocation is taking place dynamically. So it is the responsibility of operating system to manage it properly, isn't it? Like operating system has to keep track of which space is free and then it has to allocate that space to the process. So mainly in free space management techniques, there are two techniques. First one is the bitmap technique and the second one is the linked list technique. So we are going to explore both this technique and we will also be discussing what are the advantages, disadvantages of both this technique. So let us start with the bitmap. So this is the simplest one. So here what actually happens is that the free space list. So it is implemented as a bitmap or a bit vector. And how actually it is implemented? See, each block is represented by one bit. And let us try to understand this. If the block is free, so the bit is set to 1. And when the block is allocated, the bit is set to 0. I'll repeat this again. Each block, memory block, is represented by one bit in bitmap or bit vector. And say suppose if the block is free, so its bit is set to 1 and when the block is allocated. So mainly what happens is that the block are constantly given to the processors, isn't it? So if the block is allocated, then the bit is set to 0 in this bitmap. So let us try to understand this concept using one example. So let us consider that suppose on a particular disk. So consider these block numbers, whichever I have highlighted, are free. So if they are free means how they will be represented by 1 and rest of the blocks are allocated. So they will be represented by 0. So how will you draw the bit map for this? So consider this diagram. So say suppose these are the blocks, okay, and how they will be represented by the number of bits. So each block is represented by one bit. So in our example, I have taken here some blocks out of that. Then see suppose 2 is there. So observe here, since 2 is free, so it will be represented as 1. 3 is also free, 4 is also free, 5 is also free. So each of these blocks which are free are represented by 1 bit and all remaining are represented by 0. So this is a partial representation. So let us consider the complete bitmap for this example. So observe here. So see here, first what I have to consider, second block, right? So the numbering will start with the 0. So see here, second, third, fourth, fifth. So in this way, you can see that whichever block is free, that is represented by 1 and wherever the 0 is there, then it means that that particular block is allocated. Now let us try to understand what are the advantages and disadvantages of this approach. First advantage is that this is very simple, isn't it? Like we are only using a bit to know that whether a block is free or allocated, isn't it? Then this is very efficient to find the free space on the disk. Like I will just check that what is the bit of in this particular block. So if it is say suppose 1, then I will know that this block is free, isn't it? So this is very efficient. Then what is the disadvantage? Now to implement this bit 1 and 0, we require some special hardware support because we have to find that for where the first one is there and where it is not 0. So we require some special hardware support for this. And also this is not suitable for large disk. Let's say suppose if you are having a disk in size terabytes. So this technique is not useful in that case. So considering these drawbacks, next we are going to consider the second technique, that is the linked list technique. Now I will take again the same example like I have taken earlier, that whatever numbers I have written here. So all these blocks are free. So how they will be represented in linked list? How it will be represented? Now observe here. This is our hard disk. So say suppose I have given some numbers, block numbers 0 to 31. So in the start of the disk, we will keep one free space list here, and then it will be attached to the first block which is free. And from there onwards, whichever block is free, that is linked by this particular list, isn't it? So in this way, you can see from the diagram visually that a complete linked list of free block is there, isn't it? So whatever numbers that I have given in the program statement, so those blocks are free and they are linked together by this list. So at any moment, somebody approaches to get the first free block, then immediately what will happen? This first block will be allocated to that, and this free space listed then will be updated to the next free block, isn't it? So in this way, a chain will be created. Here, as I have told you, this is one more technique. And in this linked list of all free block is maintained, as you can see from the diagram. And here the head pointer points the first free block of the list, and this is kept on some special location on the disk. Then this block contains the pointer to the next block, and the next block contains the pointer of the another next, and this process is repeated till our last free block, isn't it? So in this way, a linked list of free blocks is maintained. Now let us now understand what are the advantages and disadvantages of this approach. So wherever the file is to be allocated a free block, the operating system just has to check that which is the first block in the linked list, and that particular file will be allocated to that block, and then the head pointer will be then to the next free block in the list. And what is the disadvantages with this approach? That here searching will be very time consuming, because every time you have to read it from the block, that say suppose whether this particular block is there in the linked list or not, isn't it? And that is why it is very reading, since it is reading very slowly, then it is very time consuming, and this is not efficient for faster access. Like this was not a drawback in Bitmap, it was way faster, but linked list, it is very time consuming. So these are the two techniques for management of the free space in the operating system.